There are many names for God. The most central name is one that's spelled Yud and a Hey and a Vav and a Hey, 4 letters. The quality associated with that name is mercy. So that quality has to be absolutely top relevance. Especially since that name is the name of God as the creator of the universe. That name, a Yud and a Hey and a Vav and a Hey, comes from the root Hoveh. Hoveh means to be, to exist. So that name, quoting the Ramban now, that name describes God, so to speak, as the one who makes the universe be, makes everything be. And the quality associated with that is mercy. So mercy has got to be a very central quality. But first we have to try to understand what mercy is, and then why it's so central. Much of what I'm going to tell you comes from a shir that I heard on tape from David Kronglass, one of the Racha, who was a mashgiach in Israel in Baltimore, before I got there in 1969. Let's start by thinking about how mercy comes in a court proceedings, legal court proceedings, American court. George is accused of a crime. When would he appeal for mercy? At what point in the deliberations, at what point in the proceedings would he appeal for mercy? Let's suppose George thinks he's innocent. When they're trying him, when they're presenting the evidence against him, is he going to ask for mercy? Certainly not. Because an appeal for mercy would be an admission of guilt. You only ask for mercy if you have to give up on your innocence. If you think you're innocent and you still think you can prove it, you don't want mercy, you want justice. The justice that you're innocent. It's only when either you know you're guilty or you realize you can't prove that you're innocent and that the judge was going to go against you anyway, you're definitely going to be found guilty. Only then is an appeal for mercy relevant. Appeal for mercy essentially says, okay, I'm guilty, or you're certainly going to find me guilty, you're going to see me as guilty, I can't stop you. And since you're going to treat me as guilty, there's a certain punishment that goes with my guilt. And I'm asking you not to punish me, or not to punish me to that extent. That's mercy. Mercy means don't apply to me the full extent that justice would demand. Mercy starts with, I'm guilty, and I deserve, strictly speaking, the full measure of justice, but I'm asking that it not be done anyway. Yeah.
Also, can't it be a later judgment, more time to repair the damage done? So rather than just being not strict justice, it can be asked for a time to repair, make it just, whatever you did wrong.
Well, I'm starting off with the idea of a courtroom practice. I'm talking now about what goes on in court. The person, let's say, firebombed somebody's car. So deliberately. So the court may say, well, that carries 5 years in jail. That's what you get fined. So he says, I know, it's true, I did it, or you've got enough evidence against me to convict me, and I'm guilty, but don't put me in jail. I'm asking for mercy. Don't put me in jail. Now, Rav Kronglass derived from this description of what mercy, the appeal for mercy is, he derived 2 consequences which are of absolutely central importance. Number 1, an appeal for mercy is always an uphill battle. Because an appeal for mercy is always, don't do justice. And of course, justice will say, why not? What do you mean don't do justice? Justice is important. Justice is a moral principle. What do you mean don't do justice? Mercy always has to prove itself. Mercy needs a reason because it's frustrating another bona fide moral principle. Not all moral principles are like that. I'll show you later that there are moral principles that don't need a reason. But mercy always needs a reason. And number two, mercy is limited. There's a limit to mercy. Because there's another competing moral consideration. That's justice. And since justice is a genuine moral consideration, you can't simply just wish it away and make it into zero. So mercy might modify it, delay it. Now I can use your terminology. Delay it, give you a chance to make amends, and so on and so on. But mercy typically can't just wave a hand and say, justice get lost, we're not doing anything. So mercy is limited in both these ways. Because mercy is essentially against. As we said, if you're being tried of a crime and you're innocent, you don't want mercy, you want justice, because justice would declare you innocent. If you're innocent, there's no penalty at all. Mercy takes for granted there's going to be a penalty, but you're making a plea that it should be less of a penalty. So one of the questions that has to be faced is, what kind of plea can mercy make? What would it be based on? To say no to full justice, full and complete justice. What could it be possibly based on? It's got to be based on some principle that's at least the equal of justice. Might even be superior to justice. But if the whole appeal of mercy is beneath justice in your moral map, in your moral ladder, then it won't help. Justice will simply say, sorry, you're inferior. And since you're inferior, I'm going to carry out justice fully without any modification at all. So that becomes the key question. What is mercy appealing to that it can put a brake on justice? And, as I said at the beginning, why would mercy be the quality associated with that most central name of God, which describes God as giving existence to everything? Indeed, that question could be pushed a little harder. We have a description of how God creates the universe, why he creates it, what's his purpose in creating it. His purpose in creating it is loving kindness, what's called in Hebrew chesed. So then I thought to myself, but then if loving kindness is the purpose of all creation, and the name Yud and Hey and Vav and Hey describes God as giving existence to everything, why wouldn't you associate chesed with that name? Why would you associate mercy with that name? And that led me to think about the relationship between chesed and mercy. And then I think I came up with something that's pretty important, pretty deep, and then I found it has lots of other applications. Well, let's take a look for a moment at chesed, loving kindness. Loving kindness, unlike mercy, loving kindness is not fighting against something else. It's not in opposition to. It's not in response to. So a person can do something, and you ask him, why are you doing it? Because that's the kind thing to do, or that's the loving thing to do. That's an answer unto itself. That answer doesn't owe you anything. That answer doesn't have to be pushed any further. That can be the end of the chain in moral reasoning. It's just because it's loving and it's kind. That carries its own justification. If you say, please do X for me because I'm asking for mercy, the challenge will be, why? Why should we do that mercy for you, seeing that when you're asking for mercy, you're asking us not to do justice? Excuse me? You're putting a brake on justice. You have to have a reason for that, an extra reason. Mercy needs a reason. That's why in court it's his first offense. He didn't commit the crime before. Or his parents are embarrassed by it and they can take care of him. Or he has a community that will support him and they won't do it again. These are all reasons why, instead of carrying out the law strictly, you would give him mercy. But you have to have reasons, yeah.
What do you mean by kindness and love? Because mercy can fit in with being fit under kindness.
I think that's right. That's where I'm going. That's ultimately where I'm going. But the difference between them is that kindness and love don't need any further justification. Suppose I'm handing somebody $500, and somebody says to me, why are you doing that? I said, well, I love him, so I'm giving him a gift. There's no demand to ask, but why are you giving him a gift? So you love him. So what? What's the reason for giving him the gift? Love is enough of a reason. Love is a reason in and of itself.
What is love? I'm not actually sure.
Well, at a certain point, questions have to come to a halt. I mean, shall I explain to you what love is in words? Then you can just ask me what those words are, right? The words have to come to an end somewhere. I don't.
But you must have some general definition. I would ask for ongoing general definition.
I don't know the definition of love. I think love is an emotion. Define the smell of buttercups. Describe it to me. Smells are smells. If you had them, then you know what it is. If you haven't had them, tastes. The taste of a strawberry. Describe to me the taste of a strawberry. You know what it is? It tastes just like a strawberry. That's what it is.
Can you justify love? Can you justify an emotion? Justify why you're angry? Justify why? Can you justify
But that's a different question. That's a different question. If you ask me why I love him, that might get an answer. But that wasn't the question we're considering. Because the question is, if I say to you I did it out of love, is that enough of an explanation why I did it? If the love is there, then that's enough of an explanation why I did it. Because love is something which is inherently valuable. If I say I'm asking for mercy, and somebody says, well, why should I show you mercy? I can't say, because it's merciful. Mercy needs a reason, because mercy always says, don't do justice. It says, okay, it's merciful. I understand it's merciful to do that, but you're contradicting justice's claim. What reason should I prefer you over justice? Mercy is always in conflict with another principle. Love isn't in conflict with another principle by definition. It might happen to be in some cases, but it's not by definition in conflict with another principle. Kindness isn't by definition in conflict with another principle.
You see, but love is emotion. Mercy isn't an emotion. So they're not really like analogous, are they?
Well, there is the quality, the personality quality of mercy. That when you see people in trouble, you feel their pain, you feel motivation to help them. I think that's a strong part of mercy. It has to go together with a judgment that it's worthy. That's because mercy needs reasons. That's what I'm saying over and over again.
Mercy doesn't need emotion. Intrinsic to mercy is an emotional feeling. Whereas you're saying intrinsic to love is an emotional feeling. So again, they're not.
Well, take kindness.
What's kindness?
What is kindness?
Yeah.
You sure they're not asking that?
I'm not. Okay, if I define that, I would say it's giving, but
Right, giving something that's not been earned, not been deserved.
It's like mercy again.
Well, but in a way, kindness is like mercy, except that mercy is against justice. And kindness is not against justice. Kindness is not saying don't do justice. Kindness is in a vacuum. It has no background behind it. If a person wants help from me, I'm not going to ask for mercy, unless the point is you don't owe me anything. So you're not required to give me anything. But mercy is always, don't do what justice would require, do something else instead. So mercy by definition is fighting against justice. Kindness isn't fighting against anything. So I see somebody who's in need and I have the resources, I give him something. That's kindness. At any rate, loving kindness can be a starting position. An agent can do something out of loving kindness because that's the kind of agent he is. And if it's done out of loving kindness, it carries its own value. Actions of loving kindness are morally valuable actions. They're morally praiseworthy actions. They don't need any more pedigree than this is an act of loving kindness to be a good action. Whereas mercy always needs a reason, because mercy is always saying don't do justice. Now, you can imagine this in sort of graphic terms. The judge says 5 years in jail, because he represents justice. And somebody says, yeah, I know, that's what the law says. I know I committed the crime, and you have proof against me, and so on and so on. But I'm asking for mercy. Now imagine the judge saying, mercy? What's that? I have a law, I have witnesses, I have interrogation and results. You're guilty. The law says 5 years, period. I'm here to administer the law, and that's my job. And you get 5 years, period. What can the defendant say to answer the judge who says, you're falsifying, you're perverting justice. You're falsifying my job, which is to administer justice. The truth is, in our legal system, the judge has more than one role. If he's just given the role of administering justice, it's open and shut. 5 years open and shut. The Jewish picture is that, yes, the judge whose job it is to administer justice, all he knows is 5 years. But he's a servant in someone else's employ. He's a servant in someone else's pay. He's a vice president in a corporation that has a president. And the defendant can appeal to the president over the head of the vice president. Okay, your job is to administer justice, but you're not running the corporation. There's a president above you who's running the corporation. And I'm going to appeal to him to instruct you not to carry out full justice. So what we need for this to work is something above justice, something for which justice is a means. Justice is just someone in the employ of this higher principle, and then the higher principle can, on occasion, restrict justice. Yeah.
Just go back. If you can you give me an example where kindness and mercy don't overlap? I can't think of an example where kindness and mercy don't overlap.
The fact that A and B always overlap does not mean that A is identical to B. Cat and animal always overlap, but cat and animal are different concepts.
So, because other things are included within animals, so can you give me another example where either something else is included within mercy or something else is included within kindness?
I just did. Kindness can be simply giving something to someone without there being any claim of justice against him. So there can't be mercy there. Okay. Now, in our view, what we need to do, if justice is a vice president, the president over justice's head, we need to have something on top, and we need to see how that thing on top could create justice as a helper, as a means. And then, since justice is only the helper of that thing on top could also restrict justice. And that's what loving kindness is. Loving kindness can generate justice, create justice, as a means to the success of kindness. But then, since it's kindness that creates justice, kindness can also put a limit on justice. Let's see how that works. On the surface, what I just told you is very hard to understand. Because, at least on the surface, in a certain context, kindness and justice contradict one another. Kindness and justice contradict one another. Let's say I hire George for a job, and I give him a contract. The contract says 40 hours a week, and you get $200 a week. Oh no, today it'd be $2,000 a week. $2,000 a week? Fine. He works 40 hours, comes into my office Friday afternoon with the supervisor's report. He worked 40 hours, and he says, please give me my pay. I write him out a check for $2,000 and give it to him. Is that kindness?
No, because you're supposed to do that anyway.
Surely not. It's not kindness at all. He earned it. I owe it to him. If I don't give it to him, he can take me to court and force me to pay it. That's not kindness. We made a contract. He fulfilled his part, and I'm living up to my part. That's not kindness at all. If George doesn't work for me, just fell down the block, and we meet from time to time, have a pleasant conversation. I happen to be quite wealthy. This is a fantasy, you understand? I happen to be quite wealthy. And one day I said, George, you know something? I like you. You're a nice guy. Here's $500. Have a good time. That's kindness. It's kindness because I don't owe it to him. Kindness is precisely giving something I don't owe, something where there's no claim on me. Justice is only where there is a claim, and I'm satisfying the claim in the appropriate way. So, here's the key limitation. In a single interaction between two people, kindness and justice contradict one another. Kindness and justice contradict one another. You can't have both. So what I said 3 minutes ago, that kindness has to give birth to justice, justice has to be a means towards kindness, at this point is very problematic. What are you talking about? Under normal conditions, kindness and justice contradict one another. Kindness here is not going to give birth to justice as an aid to accomplishing kindness. Now I'm coming to one of the key ideas in Jewish philosophy and in Kabbalah, how, nevertheless, kindness does give birth to justice, how it does generate justice. Do you want to ask something before I go on?
potentially that it's a bit of it. So it's the point of a random question. At the same time, if you're considering kindness to be something that's not expected, then how can you understand stuff like Mishloach Manot, for example, which is a gift of kindness that's expected that other people give to other people?
Yeah, I didn't say expected, I said deserved. Someone has earned it and has a claim on it. When you'll be married, your wife will expect a birthday present. She will expect it. But you don't owe it to her. She can't take you to court if you don't give it to her. You might suffer in other ways, but you can't take you to court because she hasn't earned it. She hasn't earned it. She's not going to claim on it. She has no right to it. Right? That's justice. Justice is when you claim on it with a right to it. It doesn't have to be unexpected. It has to be something that you have no claim on and no right to. A person can treat me with kindness repeatedly so that I get used to it. I come to expect it. But that doesn't make it not kindness.
So if justice, let's say, right, that you sign a contract, you go for a job, you say you can do various things like work in computers or whatever. As your job goes on, they find out you're unqualified for what you particularly went for originally. Is that unjustice then? Because you weren't justified it.
Oh, sure. Lying is certainly unjust. Certainly unjust. But I'm not sure how it's related to what I'm talking about. Right? Okay, so now let's understand. I said a minute and a half ago that kindness and justice contradict one another in a single interaction. That's a crucial qualification, in a single interaction. But maybe in a long-term relationship, you don't have a contradiction. That's the way in which it goes, and let me show you how that goes, at least in stages. You're all aware that the Torah has in it a mitzvah of charity. The Torah's concept of charity is quite sophisticated. Maimonides has 8 levels of charity. The next to highest is anonymous charity, where the giver and the recipient don't know each other. That's good. That's valuable, because charity creates embarrassment. In the taker, receiver, it creates embarrassment. In the giver, it can create feelings of superiority. And we have many institutions that distribute charity anonymously, so that the giver and receiver don't know each other. That's a great virtue to giving charity. That's the next to highest, but it's not the highest. The highest level of charity is giving someone a job. Now, why is that? After all, I just praised anonymity. To give somebody a job, it's not anonymous. He knows you gave him a job. Huh? Okay, in a way, okay, you're making a subtle remark. He says it's not charity either. I am giving him the job. I didn't have to give him the job. But the way you put it expresses an important truth. When I give him the job, he's going to work. When I pay him at the end of the week, he's improved my position. He's accomplished something for me. He's generated a certain amount of profit for me. So he's earned what I give him at the end of the week. Here, I give him something that I don't owe him. I don't owe him a job. He can't demand a job from me. He has no right to the job that I have on offer. So in that sense, it's not justice. It's kindness. But when I give him the job, the relationship there on out is a relationship of justice. The result of which is he's not embarrassed. He's not embarrassed. This is an exquisite case where, when I give him the job, he feels very grateful to me. Talk to people who don't have work. It's a terrible position to be in. I've saved him for that. I gave him a job. He feels very grateful to me. He can express his gratitude to me without any embarrassment. Because, at the end of the day, he's working for me. Since he's working for me, he's earning the money that I give him. That's the highest level of charity, because the person who receives the charity isn't embarrassed by it. No implication of failure. No implication of dependency. That's why that's the highest form of charity. You might even, if you want to do it in an exquisite fashion, create a job for him. It might even be a job that you don't need done. But he does it, and you pay him, and he feels that he's working and earning it, and in that way he has no embarrassment. That is the highest level of charity. Now let's analyze this in the terms that we're talking about. As I said, my giving him the job is kindness. He has no claim on it. It's like, I don't owe it to him, but the gift that I've given him is a relationship of justice. The relationship is, we signed a contract, and the contract says 40 hours work, $2,000. He comes in every Friday afternoon. I give him $2,000. The very gift is a relationship of justice. That's what makes it a perfect gift. Because when it's a relationship of justice, there's no embarrassment. That's how kindness can give birth to justice. That's how justice can be an aid to kindness. It can be a means to kindness. Okay? Now, however, suppose applying the relationship of justice with this person is something which he can't live up to. He's just not able to live up to it. And at the end of the day, he's not going to be able to earn his living in this way. I don't know if you've heard of Watts, California. So it's part of Los Angeles. Terribly depressed area. It's a slum. I imagine someone coming there with a Job Corps. Unlimited funds to employ the adults of Watts in productive labor and pay them a good salary. How much will that do to improve conditions in Watts? Not a lot. Because the vast majority of people in Watts can't work at a job. They can't do that. They haven't got the skills. They haven't got the right personality training. Some of them are on drugs. Some of them are depressed. Some of them have violent antisocial attitudes. They're not able to work at a productive job. A more intelligent way to deal with the depression in Watts would be to say, for those who can work at a job, here's a job with a nice salary. For those who can't, I have a detoxification program that works on their addictions, and have psychological counseling programs that works on the psychological problems, and have remedial educational programs, which puts them in a position where they can do a decent job. And that means you'll have a mixed strategy. Some will get the perfect gift of a full-time job with a good salary, and others will get a gift which acknowledges their weaknesses, acknowledges their dependencies, services them, and helps them to overcome them. Now, this is my modern way of rendering a famous midrash. The famous midrash says that God first thought to create the world with strict justice, saw that it couldn't stand, and therefore added mercy. That midrash raises the very question that we started with. What do you mean he added mercy? If he first thought to create it with justice, then justice must be ideal. If he saw that it wouldn't stand, then he should say, okay, let's not do it. Let's not do it. Give it up. Justice is the right way, the best way to create it. It's not going to stand, so do something else. Meditate for eternity. Why create it if it's not going to work? Answer, because justice wasn't the highest goal. Justice was step 2, not step 1. Justice was the vice president, not the president. When it says that God thought to create the universe with justice, it's not because justice is the highest goal itself. Justice is the best means to the highest goal. The highest goal is loving kindness. And justice will deliver the most precious gift of loving kindness. When the Midrash says that God sees the world won't stand, what it means is the vast majority of people can't take it. They won't be successful. Some, we have on record, were judged with the highest level of justice, like Rabbi Akiva. But that's a tiny, tiny minority. So, loving kindness asserts itself a second time. The highest quality gift is a relationship of justice. But that quality, demanding that quality, is going to make a very small quantity. Very, very few people are going to be successful living on the level of strict justice. So, loving kindness asserts itself again. Now, I'm coming back to the point you made 20 minutes ago. Loving kindness asserts itself again and says, but no, it's too small. It's too narrow. It's too restricted. Have a mixed strategy. Pure justice for those who can take it, can earn on it, and then a strategy of undeserved support, pure charity for those who can't take it. So the gift will have less quality, that's true, but it will be much more widely distributed. And since this is loving kindness speaking again, and it's loving kindness speaking against justice, as we said at the very beginning. It's justice that says 1,000th of 1%, let the rest sink, because they're not earning it. So this is loving kindness speaking against justice. That's mercy. Mercy is loving kindness second time round, when loving kindness is speaking against justice. That's what mercy is. It's loving kindness second time, when loving kindness has to restrict justice. So this now fits everything that I said at the beginning. Mercy by definition says no to justice. That's true. Justice says 1,000th of 1% will get, and the rest will sink, because they haven't earned it. Mercy, which now is loving kindness again, says, but I don't want 99.999% to sink. I don't want that number to sink. I want them to succeed. So I'm going to give them a gift that isn't dependent upon strict justice. This is mercy working against strict justice. That mercy is the same loving kindness that generated the strict justice in the first place. That's why it can succeed in restricting it. Because justice is vice president under the president, which is loving kindness. Loving kindness is to say, I created you, justice, and I put you in place in order to accomplish a certain goal, but the way you function, you're frustrating my goal. You're not accomplishing my goal, you're frustrating my goal. My goal is to maximize loving kindness. All you're doing is maximizing the quality of loving kindness to a tiny, tiny minority. That's not good enough. I want more loving kindness than that. And that means the loving kindness has to apply even to the people who can't strictly earn it. So now we know that mercy and loving kindness are of the same type. In fact, mercy is a particular application of loving kindness. As loving kindness, it's an application of loving kindness after justice is in place, and says justice is wonderful for highest quality, but the disaster for quantity. And loving kindness says, I'm not prepared to put up with that restriction of the quantity. Yeah.
So it seems like mercy and kindness, going back to what I said, then just is it? So it must be that kindness is like the positive, and mercy the negative of each other. Kindness is the giving which isn't deserved, and mercy is not the applying of full justice that's deserved. So the negative and positive of each other. It seems like that's the case.
Well, you know, I think the labels there are pretty arbitrary. If I pour water on a fire and put it out, is that positive or negative? I don't know. I'm adding water. Isn't that positive? I'm adding water. Of course, adding the water puts the fire out. So call it positive, call it negative. I think it's pretty arbitrary, right? Here you're putting in more kindness, and the result of putting in more kindness is that justice gets restricted, gets frustrated. Is that positive or negative? I think it's arbitrary.
They overlapped, and you give this example of animals and cats, and I said no, but there's the difference between, when I said they were the same, and you said no, it's like animals and cats, and you said, because the difference between mercy and kindness is that you wouldn't call someone just giving a free bottle of water to someone who didn't deserve it, but didn't need, like, it was just a...
You wouldn't call it?
You wouldn't call it mercy.
Correct.
So, and I'm saying that, so by that then, it's still, you're still not applying strict justice.
Still not? That's the first point at which we are not, right?
So, so why did you call it mercy?
It is mercy. If I stop mercy by saying, if I stop justice by saying you cannot execute the full strictness of justice, that's mercy. That is mercy.
But you wouldn't say, but you wouldn't call it merciful practically, and it does apply, of course, to the exact definition. You wouldn't call it merciful to give someone a free bottle of water.
Correct, because that's not stopping.
You call that kindness.
That's right.
The opposite would be is that someone who didn't deserve the water but needed it, and you wanted it, or you giving it to them would be merciful. They needed it, and then you gave it to them. That would be merciful.
Not if there isn't anything telling me I shouldn't give it to them. It's just kindness.
That's kindness. I'm just saying. My point is, what I'm saying is that it seems then that by your definition, mercy is just the negative and kindness the positive.
I think that is arbitrary. Are we agreed that mercy is an application of kindness?
I'm not sure.
Oh, good. Let's try that again. Mercy is kindness applied against justice. When justice says, this ought to be the consequence, let's say a punishment, and kindness says, it's too strict. It's too strict. It reduces the scope of the kindness that I want to deliver. So I'm not going to apply that punishment. You could imagine someone who's against capital punishment says, but then the person could never change. He could never rehabilitate. He could never reclaim his life. And if you kill him, you've cut off all his chances. You need to be more kind than that to this person. Yeah, don't put him in jail. Don't let him hurt other people. But give him a chance to rethink his life and change. So that's kindness. But it's a kindness. Not all kindness is applied after justice. Some kindness is applied without justice in the picture. So I'm saying kindness is a general case, and mercy is a particular type of kindness, just like a cat is a particular type of animal.
Yeah, and then so the only thing left over in kindness that isn't covered by a subcategory of mercy is the positive, which is giving.
But I don't think calling it positive and negative doesn't work. In both cases, I'm giving something to somebody that he didn't deserve. Only in the one case, justice says no. In the other case, justice is out of it. In both cases, you're giving. Now, it's true that in one case, when you're giving mercy, the giving of something that he doesn't deserve frustrates justice. That's like pouring water on a fire. Is that positive or negative? I think it's an arbitrary choice. I'm pouring lots of water, that's positive. The fire's going out, that's negative. You want to call it negative? You can call it negative if you like. Just recognize you could call it positive if you like also. It's not essential that it's negative. It's just in one case, kindness has no opposition, has no opponent. It stands on the stage alone. In the other case, kindness is working against another agent and frustrating that agent. That's what's going on. The title, positive and negative, does no work here because it's arbitrary. Okay. So now, that tells you, first of all, that mercy is a kind of kindness. But I still have to explain why, in the name, Yud and Hey and Vav Hey, the proper name of God, the quality that's associated is mercy and not kindness. Okay, it's not a different concept, a concept that's utterly unrelated, but you have kindness as a quality, and you have the subcategory of mercy, which is a quality. Why did the rabbinic tradition choose mercy, particularly that specific subcase of kindness, to associate with the name of creation? I think the answer here is this. Mercy expresses a commitment to the individual that the original kindness does not. In this picture, you have kindness which says, I want to build a world in which I can give, a world in which I can provide, a world in which my creatures will experience the good. Okay? So I set up a world, and I say the world should be governed by strict justice, because when they do that, they will get the top quality good. Are there any on the scene yet? Don't know. Have I created any particulars yet? Don't know. I have a structure. The structure is kindness in top quality, which means administered with justice. Okay, now the people start rolling off the mill, start coming out on the stage, they start living their lives. I do a sort of future projection, and I see crash. The vast majority of people aren't going to make it. And I say, I can't tolerate that. I can't tolerate that. I don't want them to be lost. I don't want them to be lost. I want them to make it. Since I want them to make it, I'm not going to restrict myself to top quality kindness, which is administered by justice. I'm going to have many different degrees of kindness, by many different degrees of justice, very minimal justice or maximum justice. It'll vary from person to person, considering what they need. The sentiment here is, I would have given you top quality if you could take it. I wanted it for you because I love you and I want the best for you. But since you can't take it, I don't want you to be lost. Since I don't want you to be lost, I'll create other categories which will keep you in. Mercy is the loving kindness directed at the individuals of creation. Not at the overall structure of creation, but at the individuals of creation. And I think that's what Chazal, what the tradition wants to stress. That when you understand God as creator, you have to think of him in personal terms. Not just a God who set up a structure for the world as a whole, but a God who had you in mind particularly, and cares about your existence and your success particularly. That's the quality of kindness that the tradition wanted to associate with that name. That's why they chose mercy rather than kindness. It's not a contradiction to the idea that God created the world out of kindness at all. It just shows the extent to which the kindness applies. Okay? Now this concept helps to explain a number of items which otherwise are quite difficult to understand. I told you that midrash already, that he created the world and first thought to do was strict justice and then added to it mercy. I explained that as in a way that makes it clear what's going on there. In the prayers, in the silent prayer, next to last blessing, there's a phrase which, if you read it, and just analyze the meaning of the words, is very, very peculiar. Very peculiar. The words in Hebrew are Hatov, ki lo chalu rachamecha, Hamerachem, ki lo samech hasadecha, ve'olam kivinu loch. The good one. Now, in Hebrew and in our literature, good and loving kindness are almost synonymous. The good one, the one who acts out of loving kindness, whose mercies have not run out. He's the one who expresses loving kindness, whose mercies have not run out. And the merciful one, whose loving kindnesses have not run out. Golly, that's very strange. He's A because B didn't run out, and he's B because A didn't run out. Why do it that way? You want to express the extent of his quality A, say, he's A, and you know what? A doesn't run out. And you know what? He's B, and B doesn't run out. Why would you say he's A because B doesn't run out, and he's B because A doesn't run out? Why would you do that? Because each of those sides communicates an element of what I've been telling you that's absolutely crucial. He is the one who practices loving kindness. And he practices loving kindness to the extent that his mercies never run out. That means the loving kindness is even to the extent of restricting justice, holding justice back. Not just loving kindness to create justice in the first place, for the highest quality loving kindness, but also loving kindness to maximize the extent of the kindness and the benefit by holding back justice. And he's the merciful one. Mercy can come from many different sources. There are those of us, you know, the old political adage: if you're not a liberal at 20, you have no heart. If you're a liberal at 30, you have no brains. There's a title that non-liberals give to liberals, a bleeding heart liberal, which means he's totally unrealistic and is ruled by his emotions. In particular, when he sees people in pain, he wants to do for them, but doesn't think about the consequences for them and for others, and so forth and so on. Raising the minimum wage, which means employers won't employ them, so they end up with no jobs. Right? They didn't do them any good, but he can't see them earning so little, so you do it blind. There are many different motivations for mercy. God's mercy is based on one motivation only, that's loving kindness. He's the merciful one because his loving kindnesses don't run out. That's where his mercy comes from, not from all the other places that mercy could come from. Now it comes out that this description is gold. This description really tells you a crucial thing about the relationship between loving kindness and mercy by reversing the vocabulary in that way. There's one more element here. See if I can describe this to you in neutral terminology. Sometimes a person is acting out of a certain principle or a certain motivation, but it's crucial that the motivation be hidden. If the motivation is on the surface, the action will not have its effect. So, for example, there are times when the Torah tells us it's appropriate to show anger. Many sources agree it's never appropriate to be angry. It's never appropriate to be angry, even though that may not be possible to control, but that's never appropriate. But there are many times when it's appropriate to show anger. Now, why would you want to do that? Because if you don't show anger, then the one that you're interacting with won't take you seriously. Won't take you seriously. You punish a child, and you say to the child, "This hurts me more than it hurts you," which it may. And, "Oh, I hate to do this," and you resist doing it, and then finally you say, "I wish I didn't have to do this." You know what the child hears? "If I push harder next time, then you won't do it." That's what he hears. He sees how much resistance is in you to do it, and he thinks, Okay, I've got leverage. This time he won the battle with himself, but next time he won't. I have leverage, and I can, I don't have to give up. Sometimes it may be appropriate to show anger, because by showing anger, you show that you mean it. I read a paper in philosophy many years ago. It was very enlightening to me. The communication in punishment. Punishment as a communicator. If you say something's wrong, something's bad, something's destructive, if you say it's hateful and you don't punish it, no one will believe you. You will not communicate real negative sentiment unless you punish it. Punishment serves as a communication that you really mean it. So, you may have to punish in order that people realize that you really mean it. Without that, you can't get them to realize that. And once they realize you really mean it, then indeed, they may be impressed so that the punishment by itself isn't necessary. The punishment may not be necessary. They may not want to cross you to the extent they really make you angry. They may fear doing it just because they don't want to make you angry. But if they think to you it's really trivial, and you're doing it because of social pressures or something else, so then they'll push because they want what they want. So again, you have to put on a veneer that isn't your true feeling in order for the action to be successful. According to Moshe Chaim Luzzatto, great Kabbalist and a great philosopher, God runs our world roughly that way. The overall purpose of all creation is kindness. This world is run in such a way as to ultimately maximize the kindness. But a manifestation of ongoing, unlimited kindness leads to a psychological reaction of, then it doesn't matter what I do, because he's committed to giving me anyway. So there's a veneer of justice. There's a veneer of reward and punishment, where things can go badly if you behave badly. That's not God's goal. He puts on that veneer because without it, the goal of kindness cannot be satisfied. What we have to understand is that the veneer of justice is real, and it will operate, and it will have ups and downs, but that veneer is only a veneer, and it hides the essential kindness behind it. One more application of this, and then I'm going to quit. There's a phrase that many of you are familiar with. It's a very widely used phrase in our literature, and that is Ovinu Malkeinu, our Father, our King. Sometimes during the year we go a whole long list of 30 or more of them, and it's in the everyday Shemona Esrei twice, in doing tshuva and getting forgiveness. Ovinu first, Malkeinu second. It's always Father first and King second. Always. It's never, ever reversed. Why? Because Father is loving kindness, and King is justice, and Father is always the source of King. The King is only the way the Father behaves under certain conditions in order for the Father to achieve his goals. This is the reason why, same application, this is the reason why on Rosh Hashanah, which is the day of justice, we can appeal for mercy. Someone who's sensitive and well thought out would say, excuse me, this is the day of justice. Mercy has no place on the day of justice. There's another day for that. Yom Kippur, day of forgiveness. But a day of justice is simply going to be innocent or guilty, period. That would be true if justice stood alone. But justice doesn't stand alone. Justice is the vice president. Nothing stands without loving kindness. Nothing. Whenever any other theme comes up, whenever any other purpose comes up, whenever any other consideration comes up, it's always under loving kindness, because loving kindness is the only purpose of the entire creation. It's the only theme that runs through the entire creation. So whatever else is going on, you can always appeal to loving kindness, because loving kindness is always present. That's why on Rosh Hashanah you can appeal for mercy. I mean, this concept of this structure answers many, many different questions in many different realms, and that's because it is one of, if not the most fundamental structure in Jewish thinking. Yeah.
You just clarify. You're saying that there will be reward and punishment, but it's only a veneer. Will there be, or if it's only a veneer, so there won't be? I didn't understand.
You didn't understand it because I left it vacant. The truth is that since the Sfarim all agree that the purpose is loving kindness, if the ultimate is only earned reward, that's not an expression of loving kindness. So in a certain sense, even the concept of earned reward has to be transcended. It ultimately has to be transcended. So in other words, the loving kindness that's put in the beginning, one could answer superficially. Who set up the whole thing? You didn't deserve, demand, earn the fact that God should create you. Right? So the very act of creating you is an act of loving kindness. That's true, but it's not enough. It's not enough. Because if at the end of the day, all you get is what you earned, then there's no expression of loving kindness in giving you what you get. And there has to be an expression of loving kindness in giving you what you get, which means that what we call Olam Haba, the world to come, has stages. And that means when you see a description of Olam Haba, of the world to come, you have to be careful. Sometimes you'll find ones that contradict one another. It's not really a contradiction because the world to come comes in stages. There are stages of development. And ultimately, it has to get to a point where you pass beyond even what you've earned. Otherwise, it wouldn't be a real expression of kindness. I think that's right. That's right, yeah. Yeah, we talked about that. You came in late. That was the first idea. That's what I just said to him now. The fact that he creates me, gives me the opportunity, that's certainly an act of loving kindness. I had no claim of being created, but it's not enough. It's not enough.
Why isn't it enough? Is that not so? It's either is loving kindness, just the act of giving me the chance to earn it, or it isn't. If it is, then you don't need the. Then you don't need.
I said it isn't enough. You can't answer that by saying either it is or it isn't.
Oh, it's not.
It's not enough.
Why isn't it enough?
Okay, but you can't answer it by saying either it is or it isn't.
I mean, you were saying
it isn't enough, right? Because God's loving kindness has no bounds. And this is setting a bound on its expression. And this is what you're going to get for eternity. Right? The eternal expression of loving kindness should be set on the bound of what you earned is not going to be consistent with unbounded loving kindness. So at this point, I'm telling you facts that I know, but I can't fully explain them. I just know that there is such an idea. Luzzatto alludes to it in some of his books, but he doesn't describe it in detail because there's a famous statement in Chazal, based on a verse, Ein l'roz elokim zulasecha v'hatov tzefanta l'reyecha. No eye other than yours, God, has seen the good that you have put in store for those who fear you. So there's a certain element there that we don't fully grasp.
Because it would be the case if God's loving kindness had to be unlimited in the end, because He is loving kindness. Then in the end, the reward and punishment wouldn't even matter. In the end, that's what I'm saying. That's exactly what I'm saying. But how that works out exactly, it's not clear to me anyway.